Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hi there, and welcome back for another episode of the Kelly's Astrology podcast. This week, we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week starting November 4th. This week sees two planets change zodiac signs. And so in turn, this can shift the energy, mood, and options that you're dealing with. It might change things inside you, and it might change things outside you in terms of your circumstances or experiences. So Venus will move into Libra, one of her home signs, on Wednesday, November 8th. And then on Friday, November 10th, Mercury will move into Sagittarius, one of its detriment placements. So there's a little bit to unpack on both counts. Before I do, I want to let you know that this week is your last chance to sign up and save with the special bundle offer for my astrology training program. So if you're ready to add magic and divine timing to your life, if you want to add more meaning and insight around who you are and what the future might hold, learning astrology might just be for you. If so, sign up before November 6th to save more than 10% off the regular course fees. There are two options for this special bundle price. You can either make one payment upfront that covers you for the entire program, or you can take the monthly payment plan option. All the details are on my website, kellysastrology.com, so pop over there to check things out. I hope to see you in class soon. So back to this week and Venus and Mercury changing signs. First up, as I said, Venus moving into Libra Wednesday, November 8th. Venus is coming home to Libra for a 4-week stay. Venus will be in Libra from November 8th through to December 4th. As a little sidebar, I can barely believe that we're talking about December already, but that's where we're at. So what do you need to know about Venus in Libra in 2023? First up, Libra is a great sign placement for Venus. So Venus in Libra helps promote working towards agreement and finding points of connection and compromise. Venus in Libra can also help bring some sweetness, ease, or enjoyment back into your life. Venus in Libra might also be interested in things like considerate conversations or helping you talk through major relationship matters. So technically, this is an excellent sign for Venus to be in. And if there's going to be any easing of things like global tension or, big disagreements in the collective, things like peace talks or discussions about, reducing aggression, the time frame with Venus in Libra is going to be really ideal for this. So Venus in Libra, normally I would just go all in on this as a time that really promotes harmony or peace or finding that accord and that collaboration. But there are actually two technical points to keep in mind that do slightly shift the way Venus in Libra is expressing this year in 2023. So the first point is that we've also got the South Node in Libra, and that adds a bit of a complicating quality. Venus will be most strongly influenced by the South Node at the very end of November, and that might do a couple of things. The South Node has a dispersing or a diminishing effect, and so it might kind of reduce the normally potent powers of Venus in Libra, so it might reduce some of that diplomatic skill or potential that Venus in Libra normally brings forward. So the South Node is a little bit shadowy and it does have an unstable quality. So that can really kind of reduce the powers of Venus in Libra. I don't know if it'll do that the whole time Venus is in Libra, but it's certainly going to do that as we get to the latter part of Venus in Libra, which is the latter part of the month of November and the early part of December. So Venus in Libra, as good as that can be, the South Node being in Libra does take away a little bit or sort of like reduces the effectiveness of Venus in Libra. So I think that means the early part of Venus in Libra is going to be kind of like the best part of Venus in Libra, and the end part of Venus in Libra, which is late November, maybe not so great. So that's the first technical point that's affecting Venus in Libra this year. The second technical point has to do with the phase that Venus is in. Venus is in her morning star condition or morning star phase in Libra this year. And that makes Venus really bright. If you happen to be up before sunrise, you'll get a beautiful visual of Venus in that eastern sky. But morning star Venus is the more independently minded version of Venus. Historically, Venus morning star is actually the warrior expression of Venus. And so that kind of complicates how oriented towards peace and accord and agreement Venus in Libra might be. Even though Venus in Libra as a sign is really focused on negotiation and collaboration and finding those points of consensus and agreement, Venus, by her phase, morning star, does keep an eye on what she can negotiate for herself. So that's a really interesting contrast between sign placement and phase of Venus this year. And so obviously global events are incredibly heated at the moment, but I also want you to think about how Venus in Libra might invite more of that kind of finding consensus type conversation and discussion in your own life too. It is a really interesting mix of sign and phase for Venus right now, Libra being so much about collaboration and forming partnership and focusing on those kind of bonding experiences, whereas the phase of Venus being morning star is much more independent, much more inclined to kind of go solo. And so, kind of navigating that mix right now where you're able to stay focused on what is right and fair for you, but still engage in respectful discussions or even just keep the lines of communication open. I think that's one really special possibility of this combination. Now, one challenge for any placement in Libra is the tendency to be too compromising or accommodating of others' requests, leaving that Libra planet perhaps feeling overlooked or forgotten or a bit neglected. So there is something to be said for this particular combination of morning star Venus in Libra, helping you kind of really remember what's right for you, but then figuring out how to navigate or negotiate that within a partnership. So we're not, being so focused on our own needs that we forget we have to collaborate, but nor are we being so focused on the needs of someone else that we forget we have some requirements as well. So, maybe one way of summarizing that is it's very much about negotiation. It's the back and forward, the to and fro about what do we each need? How can we find some middle ground? Or even if we can't agree on everything, what are the points where we can come to a connection or an agreement around? I should also say that this is actually the best placement we've had of Venus by sign since earlier this year. We have to go all the way back to mid-March to mid-April when Venus was in Taurus. And that was the last time that we had, that really helpful, stable, and collaborative influence of Venus being in a great sign. So that's kind of a longer gap than we normally go. And so even though Venus in Libra isn't perfect and does have these few unique extra technical factors to consider, Venus in Libra is still the best Venus we have had in a long time. And it's also the best Venus we're going to have until the very tail end of December. And so with that in mind, I do want you to kind of, go forward with discussions, agreements, alliances that you need to negotiate. Get things going now, do what you can, even if all you can come to agree on is just a couple of things to carry you through the next 2 months. To my mind, it's a little bit better to grab the compromise that you can for now, even if you know you'll need to revisit it in the future. And to me, that helps take advantage of the really special opportunity that Venus in Libra brings to help with discussion and debate and that idea of exploring how to better work together. Venus in Libra is so focused on that unification. How can we unite behind, what we agree on, or how can we come together on what we both think is important? And I think with Venus in Libra, it really indicates how much discussion and back and forward we're going to need to have to realize, oh, we do have these things in common. So that's a really kind of detailed look at Venus in Libra, but it is a special placement that I have been looking forward to for quite a few months now. I know many of you have as well. So I wanted to give you a little bit more of a deep dive breakdown on what we can expect out of Venus in Libra. So with that said, let's now take a look at Mercury moving into Sagittarius. Mercury is going to spend 3 weeks in Sagittarius, moving in on November 10th, and Mercury will be in Sag to December 1st. Now, Mercury is going to have a retrograde next month in December, and Mercury's retrograde is partly in the sign of Capricorn and partly in the sign of Sagittarius. So I'll be bringing you more information about that in a future episode. So for now, I just want to focus on the general vibe of Mercury and Sagittarius, which is most relevant to the change we're going to experience in this first full week of November. So Mercury is particularly wild, free, and uncontained in Sagittarius. This is one of the detriment placements of Mercury. And so this isn't a great placement for things like details, deadlines, or really focusing in on factual things. Instead, Mercury in Sagittarius is really hopeful and sees possibilities around every corner. Mercury in Sagittarius is also a very open and expansive influence, and that can really help stretch your mind or help you connect with things like meaning and purpose, or even a special wisdom or philosophical tradition. You know, if you think about this as Mercury in a sign ruled by Jupiter, and so we want the big conceptual framework, like context and meaning, we're not really looking with the logistics and the specifics and the details. So instead of focusing on data, you might want to explore ritual, particularly ritual around meaning or inspired by story. You know, Mercury in Sag is great at kind of learning through story or the narrative process. And you may be particularly interested in learning about some of those Jupiter wisdom topics, things that might come under the mystical or metaphysical umbrella. There's also a really broad curiosity to Mercury in Sagittarius, and that might draw your attention, at least temporarily, towards a wider variety of topics or subjects. Or maybe it draws your attention to something new that you haven't explored before. Mercury in Sagittarius is really open and interested in risk. So it's kind of willing to try new things, even if it seems a little risky or it's outside your comfort zone. And that can really help evoke the spirit of adventure and discovery. A few notable people with Mercury in Sagittarius include storytellers like Louisa May Alcott, Steven Spielberg, George Eliot, Noel Coward, Nancy Mitford, and even Emily Dickinson. It also includes big thinkers like Isaac Newton and Joseph Pilates, as well as singers like Dionne Warwick, Frank Sinatra, and Tina Turner, to name just a few notable people with this placement. At its best, Mercury in Sagittarius can help with speech or ideas that are expansive and uplifting or are engaging and compelling. So during the next few weeks with Mercury in Sagittarius, be on the lookout for interesting stories that both inspire and educate you. I recently read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is a story about two sisters in World War II in France and the ways in which they each helped out with the French resistance movement. It's a novel, but it is inspired by some incredible real-life women. And that story has totally touched my heart. And even days after finishing the book, I'm still reflecting on it, marveling about it, and really, if I'm honest, inspired by the stories of the women shared in this novel. One common theme with both Venus and Mercury changing signs this week, to kind of come back to just taking that broad overview of this early part of November, a common theme with Venus moving into Libra and Mercury moving into Sagittarius is that they're both moving into hot signs. So Libra is a hot, wet air sign, and Sagittarius is a hot, dry fire sign. And so planets in hot signs are much more active. They're more expressive. They're more about movement and progress. So you might find that you're more likely to do something about your desires and your feelings, or you're more likely to act on what's on your mind now. Both Venus and Mercury moving into more outgoing signs can help you be more expressive or more outspoken. They might help you be a little bit more loud in general. You might be more proactive about what you want to experience or what you want to do. And this can feel a little bit like a cosmic message to go for it. So that's a little bit about the astrology of this week. Of course, anytime you want more about all the different aspects that are happening each day, I'd invite you to pop over to the monthly astrology guide where you can get even more detailed astrology there. But with that said, if you are ready to go deep with your journey with astrology, I'd love to see you in beginner astrology class next week. That special bundle offer is available until November 6th. So run, don't walk over to kellysastrology.com to sign up and save before then. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye for now.